Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast, the #1 podcast in Colorado Springs.
Today we have Franchise Succeed as our sponsor, as that we're giving a shout out for. So Franchise Succeed, great owner. It's Jeff Alexander, who's the owner of that business. Check him out, franchisesucceed.com.
Yeah. All right, so today we're sitting here with Brooke McClintock with Synergy Home Care.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your business and kind of what got you started with this.
What got me started, I graduated college as a registered dental hygienist, and fast forward 10, 12 years into that career, I found myself in a geriatric setting, and most of our clients were between the ages of 70 and actually 105. And my true passion was discovered caring for seniors in that moment. It gave us an opportunity, my husband and I, actually to start researching, like, what do we want to do? What we do seems to be meaningful, but we would love to do something that impacted our community on a much larger basis than what we were currently doing. And so he read an article about home care and sort of expanded my mind on that. And I realized that a lot of my dental patients actually had home care and caregivers that were supporting them in the dental office via transportation and companionship and just a second set of eyes and ears. So we decided to quit our careers, our comfortable careers, leave our beautiful home in Washington, D.C., and open Synergy Home Care here in Colorado Springs, not knowing anyone or anything in the community. And here we are, super proud of almost 10 years in the community of providing care. So that gives a little overview of how I got into Synergy Home Care. Synergy Home Care, I like to say that we're the son or daughter who can't be there all the time. A lot of the things that a son or daughter offers to their parent, we can offer those services as well. The industry tends to break us up into 3 broad categories: companionship, homemaker, and personal care. And underneath that falls many other sort of forms of care that we can offer. We are very focused on sort of self-centered care, patient care, very specific care to the individual, not a one size fits all for the person.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is all in-home care specifically?
Yeah, so we do all in-home care. We like to say wherever home is. So home could be in your original home that you raised your kids in. It could be in an independent living, assisted living, or memory care.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, it rings home for me for a lot, because I always talk about on this show about taking care of my grandfather and like not knowing about what resources were out there. It all happened when in the height of COVID for my grandfather getting dementia, and like getting those resources, getting the right people in was just, at that point, it just wasn't an option. And like those extra resources, those extra people, you're like, would you say we are an extension of like your son, or we're like your son or daughter?
Mm-hmm.
I love
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, we are the daughter who can't be there. I don't mean to exclude the son, but 9 times out of 10, it is typically the oldest daughter that we initiate conversations with. And then what's great is when the whole family gets involved, all the sons and daughters, the spouse, really talking about the goals that they have for their loved one and the type of care, the expectations that are expected of Synergy Home Care.
Yeah. So how do you, like, when you're getting into this, how does Colorado Springs pop up? There's a lot of things that ring a bell for that. One, like, I'm sure that it's a big retirement community here in Colorado Springs. There's a lot of retired, probably, military folks here. But like, what specifically Colorado Springs, like, how did that ring a bell when you come from DC?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess just to be honest, it was truly for selfish reasons to move somewhere closer to the mountains. I've got 2 young children, and we love to hike and camp, and particularly ski. I snowboard.
Cool.
But after the initial selfish reason of moving here, we definitely obviously realized that there were 5 military installations here, and we there's a stat that says that a lot of vets like to retire in Colorado Springs. It kind of goes back and forth between Hawaii and Colorado Springs, which is like the number one retirement destination for our veterans. So there's a huge population of veterans. Probably about 2 years ago, I'm super excited. We became contracted with the Veterans Administration to provide in-home services to the local vets here. And a lot of times our veterans don't even know that they have these services available to them. So I am that frontline individual educating them that they can receive paid services in their home. And it doesn't mean that they have to move out of home, and we can provide those supportive services. So
that's awesome. Is that like part of their DD 214 that they get? And you probably don't know all that, but it's like the official form they get submitted to them, right? When they leave the military, that has the benefits provided in there.
So they do have to fill out a 1010 easy form, submit that to the VA, and then they'll come back to them with the different levels of benefits that are offered to them. They do have to be service connected. They have to have been seen by a physician at the VA clinic here locally or potentially up in Denver. And then that physician can prescribe the amount of hours per week or month that that veteran may need in their home.
We like to take a quick moment and thank our sponsors.
Home Day.
Are you an employer looking to boost employee retention and recruitment? Home Day offers a unique benefit program that helps your employees buy their dream home while saving an average of $4,000 on closing costs.
Neon Pig Creative. Bring brands to life with Neon Pig Creative. Dazzling designs and strategic marketing make businesses stand out. Spark creativity at neonpigcreative.com. That's neonpigcreative.com.
Exponential Impact. Fuel startup success with Exponential Impact. Mentorship, resources, and support available to amplify impact. Join a community of change makers at exponentialimpact.com.
That's exponentialimpact.com.
Fast Signs.
Fast Signs can help you with all your signage and visual marketing needs. Whether you're starting a new business or just need a signage refresh, let Fast Signs help you. Make your statement. That's fastsigns.com. Cars Helping Charities.
Cars Helping Charities is a turnkey fundraising solution for nonprofits. Cars Helping Charities allows your nonprofit to accept vehicle donations, which are sold, and then the funds go to the organization. CHC is partnering with my nonprofit of choice, Mattersville, to help them raise funds through vehicle donations. Please consider donating your car to support Mattersville. CHC will pick up any car, an old clunker you have sitting in your driveway, or a car you just don't feel like selling anymore. Make sure to visit carshelpingcharities.org. That's carshelpingcharities.org.
Now let's get back to the show.
I know just by market trends, us being marketers on this side of the table, we know that we're at the precipice of like the biggest generation about to go into being more senior and probably needing more assisted care in their daily lives. Your industry obviously is probably getting ready for that, but it's probably already starting to get strained a little bit because of just the influx of so many people who are probably needing care. Talk a little bit about the environment of the baby boomer generation going into, more assisted living and needing more advanced care.
Yeah. So we call this situation that's sort of unfolding beyond us with baby boomers, the silver tsunami. And what that means is there are about 10,000 individuals a day that are turning 65. And the stats say that 70% of those daily 10,000 individuals are going to need some form of long-term care, which is home care, independent living, assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing facility care as well.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number. Yeah, 10,000.
And that's just in the US too, probably, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Correct. Yes, absolutely. So, so that does put strain on the healthcare system. One of our biggest challenges, and I would say probably our biggest challenge during COVID, was recruiting talent and finding those individuals that wanted to put themselves out on that front line and care for these individuals. It's definitely shifted from COVID. I don't want to dwell on COVID or anything like that. So thank goodness there has been a great shift as far as hiring and retaining our care team and stuff like that. but it's a daily effort to be recruiting and making sure that we have enough care team available. Obviously, what we find with home care is nobody plans for needing home care. It is crisis driven. So it is, my mom fell last night. She's in the hospital, has to have surgery. Tell me, this is my first time navigating this. And for all of us, it's like having a child. You don't know what to do until you are living it and in the moment and experiencing it. And is this right? And is this the wrong way? Is this what my mom or dad wants? I have to stress, it's like critical. It's so important to start conversations with your loved ones, with your spouse, with your mom and dad. Talk about what their goals, what their priorities are. And I always, when I meet individuals, my first question is, how important is it for you to stay in your own home? Because if it's not important, then what am I doing here? Why am I, speaking to you about preserving your independence in your own home? But every single person says, I'm not leaving my home. I'm going to go kicking and screaming and please don't put me in a community. I think there's just, unfortunately, it's taboo to talk about aging. Our whole lives as young adults and grown adults, we plan, we prepare, we want the best for in our life. And then we get to this point where it's like, nope, I'm sealed lipped. I'm not going to talk to my son or daughter about my care needs and the what ifs. And I get that it's scary. Nobody likes talking about death and dying, but it is something that is promised to us. And it should be a very major part of planning and preparing in your future.
I totally agree with that. And I mean, my grandpa did not want to leave at all, that he wanted to die in the house. And unfortunately, at the very end, we had to put him in a community or facility because we were so stressed beyond like all the resources and manpower we could. But the in-home healthcare, like in-home care was amazing that we had at the time. It was mostly because I left the house. I was living with my family when we were taking care of them. When I moved and got a condo somewhere else that, they were without me. I think it was just too much for them. But you're 100% right. He did not want to leave his home.
Yeah.
He did not want to leave his home. And you're right to have those conversations as early as you possibly can, especially when you have all your faculties with you, How does one broach that subject with their family? I mean, it probably has to come from the parent, I would assume, but like, how do you have those conversations and what resources are out there for us to be educated as a consumer to make those decisions,
That's a great question. I love when a son or daughter actually reaches out to us and asks us that question. How do I bring this up? Everything you're telling me sounds exactly what my loved one needs, but I don't think they're going to be open to this. And I usually encourage them to make the conversation about themselves. Mom, when I go out of town on the weekends camping and you're home alone, it would give me peace of mind if somebody could come and check in on you for a couple of hours. And not that you need a lot of help or a lot of care, but God forbid if something did happen, they would be able to support you and help. And then at the same time, have that outreach to the son or the daughter. So really just focusing on this gives me the peace of mind and not making it so much about the inabilities that your loved one can no longer do, like shower themselves safely or prepare a healthy meal or even going and checking the mail in the middle of winter or something like that. So yeah.
I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, you're so right with the spectrum, like checking the mail. Like no one thinks about that. Like my grandfather fell early on, just getting the newspaper from the driveway. And we're like, he went outside like 15 minutes ago. Where the heck did he go? And we didn't realize he slipped on a patch of ice at the bottom of the driveway where it snowed a week ago, but there was a patch of ice still there. And like just everything that you might not think of, the unthinkable things happen, right? And that's just life. Things come up that are beyond what we can plan for. And like to have a plan in place before it gets to any of those moments
Yeah. Oh, you know what I find a lot of times people use us very minimally. They might need just transportation. Maybe they can no longer drive because their eyes are failing them for one reason or another, or their memory is unfortunately letting them down and they have a form of dementia and they're getting lost whenever they're driving. So sometimes it can just start off very, very slow and minimally. And then as things change, as they age, then increasing our care. It's surprising how small amount of daily care can keep somebody safe and independent in their home, so that they don't feel like they have to leave. I do feel like at some point, particularly with cognitive impairments, it is easier to have somebody maybe living in a memory care community than keeping them at home. It does take a lot of resources when somebody needs round the clock care. So we a lot of times are that first step in keeping the person home, after, like yourself, Marcus, being a family caregiver. And then we talked about having a plan, but like going out and touring different communities and finding a culture that you want to be a part of if you can't stay in your own home, is so vital, so important.
Yeah, 100%. It's intense, and it sounds like you have. I have to give you guys your flowers, just because you briefly brushed on COVID, and I know my partner, like especially just knowing the horror stories of like how stressed then all frontline workers were during COVID in hospitals, but no one really talks about like senior communities and home care and all those folks who had to do so much and kind of pivot so much and still work their butts off because so many people were strained and quitting. And those who remain from those times till now, I give a lot of testament to like their courage and how much pain tolerance they have to still be around today. And the fact that they must have had some level of passion to keep around today, just because of how much has gone on through all those times, those tribulations. And so do you have, I know you've talked about like you have a little bit of passion for this and you found out it and like being a dental hygienist, but do you have this inherently like with your family? Did you have like a scenario where you've had this kind of nurturing part of you that you wanted to have a passion for seniors, or where did it originally come from?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. I was blessed to have 4 great grandparents in my life and all 4 of my grandparents in my life. So I knew them from the time I was born till about the age of 30 is whenever I lost my last great grandmother. And they lived to be very old, all in their 80s and mid 90s. And it's, I guess, having a grandparent, you realize it's special, but when you lose a grandparent, you really realize how special that bond and that relationship was, with them, and just how much that they've taught you and, sort of encouraged you to go, and into life and explore and stuff. But just having, my grandparents around me, it just made me want to, I guess I always just knew that I wanted to help people. When I was a young girl, I wasn't sure what that was. I thought I wanted to be a dentist. I ultimately became a dental hygienist, and in that career, it allowed me to have one-on-one contact with an individual. And there's so many healthcare professionals where it's quick and speedy. You're with your nurse or doctor for 5 or 10 minutes, and as a dental hygienist, that one-on-one experience with my geriatric clients was so special to me. And we had meaningful conversations. It wasn't just the normal, how's the weather? What are you doing this summer? They would really try to get into your life and learning that from them, being able to carry on conversations in reverse to older adults that may not be able to like help carry those conversations on. But yeah.
That makes sense. That's kind of how I am too, with being with Danielle and knowing that just seniors in general, and like how I guess there's a lot of wisdom behind all those years, and how they don't want to just know about the weather. They want to know you as a human being, and they're struck by youth and energy, and they want to know you if you have a lot of energy behind you. I feel like, they might see themselves in some aspects to some of those younger people too.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're willing to ask hard questions, the whys, not the yes, no questions that are easy to answer and stuff.
Probably not embarrassed either to ask those questions because they've gone through life. They have the maturity to not care what other people think.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely have lived it. So
That's very true.
yeah.
Let's talk about leadership a little bit.
Yeah.
You have a team, you have a lot of caregivers, I'm sure, in your staff. How has that been managing, caregivers throughout the years that you've had this business? And how has it evolved since COVID as well?
Yeah. I'm the oldest of 6 kids in my family. So I think that position growing up has helped me to create feeling like I can be a leader. And, after 12 years of working for other individuals, I just always knew deep down in my heart that I wanted to own my own business and sort of be in control of my own dreams and destiny. I first getting into this, we had to hire 10 caregivers before we even had a client. Our goal was to have a small care team available, waiting and ready for that first crisis call that we took in. And goodness, that seemed like a lot of people to manage 9.5 years ago. Fast forward almost 10 years later, I've got a team of 85 caregivers. And some days it's very stressful. There's a lot going on. A lot of people have their own lives and things come up. And I think for me, just slowing down and being very understanding and empathetic to what's going on in their life has allowed a culture to grow within Synergy Home Care where our caregivers feel like they're cared about, that they're loved, that we want the best for them. And it's so easy for senior caregivers to not feel that way, to just feel like I'm a robot and I'm here and I'm just going through the motions of caring for individuals. And we check in with them. And after their first visit with a new client, at the end of the week, we communicate with them. Every 30 days, we like to host and reward the team with little parties in our office and stuff like that. So I think just helping to generate a very balanced culture just sort of naturally allows that leadership role to take place and be in effect without it feeling like I have to work that hard to be the leader. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's such a grind for one being a caregiver. I feel like they should get the benefits of like first responders because I mean, just the things they have to do. I mean, we're talking bathing and helping people use the restroom and like just so much, getting them up, turning them over, getting them out of bed, changing folks. I mean, these are not babies. These are grown people nonetheless,
Yes.
and a lot of them are dead weight at certain points in their life where it's very hard to lift them up and do the things, especially as a female caregiver. Like it's insane. And so I've always been so impressed by the field and it is a grind. And I'm glad that you're saying like there's levels to it where you're building a culture, because like when you're that tired and you're still called in for whatever kind of long hour shift, I'm sure it wears on the staff.
It does. Yeah. The average industry sees a turnover rate with their care team like every 90 days.
Wow.
So it's, as I mentioned, just sort of, we never take our finger off the pulse of recruiting talent and trying to meet individuals that are quality individuals. I find our best caregivers are the ones that have a personal story that can relate. My mother had stage 3 cancer and I stopped working and cared for her, or talking about their grandparents and how that they were there for them and cared for them. Our care team is definitely the heartbeat of our business. We could not do it without them. They come first in my mind. A lot of times people will ask, well, who comes first, the client or the caregiver? And I'm like, if we didn't have caregivers, we wouldn't be able to do the things that we want to do in the community and support our seniors. So caregivers are my number one. I hold them near and dear in my heart and respect all the hard work that they do. And when I started this business, I was a caregiver myself. I went out and responded to people that, I've fallen, can you come help pick me up? And individuals, like you were saying, just with all the personal care that somebody may need. So I've done everything that my care team has done. And so it's great when they have questions. I hopefully can answer them, but I do learn a lot from them. There's caregivers that have been doing this a lot longer than I've been involved in the business. And I hold them on a very high platform.
We're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors.
Pinnacle Advanced Primary Care. Skip the healthcare hassle with Pinnacle Advanced Primary Care. Direct primary care for a simple monthly fee, putting health first. No insurance needed. Experience personalized care that's as unique as every individual. Visit pinnacleapc.com to learn more. That's pinnacleapc.com.
Franchise Succeed. Grow any business with Franchise Succeed. From development to expansion, turning small businesses into national brands through franchising. Start scaling up with a free consultation at franchisesucceed.com today. That's franchisesucceed.com.
Planet Duct. Breathe easier with Planet Duct, Colorado Springs' premier air duct cleaning service. Powerful vacuum trucks rid homes of allergens and dust. Clear the air by visiting planetduct.com. That's planetduct.com.
Epic Eyewear. Elevate style with Epic Eyewear. Innovative designs meet unmatched quality, ensuring a great look and better vision. Discover your next pair of shades at epiceyewear.com. That's epiceyewear.com, spelled EPOCH eyewear.com.
And we're running a special discount right now, Andrew. It's COS BP15 for 15% off your
15% off your freaking order at epiceyewear.com. We're wearing the sunglasses right now. If you're listening on the audio, definitely check out the video so you can see and check out how epic they are. EPOCH
eyewear.com.
Eyewear.com.
Now we will get back to this episode. Explain to our families out there who are listening, who don't know much about this industry, but might have a family member who's going through the motions of whatever it might be, or thinking about this. Because for me, like, I didn't know the expectations of any caregivers out there of like their boundaries for a relative of mine, like my grandfather. He was combative. He was angry. He would shout out. And like, I didn't know if that was part of their training to even understand or even deal with something like that, and what the boundaries are with dealing with different types of scenarios where, these folks are going through different types of things, like dementia specifically, right? Like, they can be very combative, and that's kind of part of the process, actually, if you know that in a memory care unit.
Mm-hmm.
But talk a little bit more about that too, because I think a lot of the kids of the family members who are seniors or whatever going through this, they just don't know, and they're just like, oh my gosh, my mom or dad is acting out, but I don't think they quite know that's actually part of part of it.
That's part of the disease and stuff like that. So we do like to train all of our caregivers the same, whether they are new or a veteran and been caregiving for a long time. I am still in charge of providing that small group or one-on-one training to the caregivers. Dementia care is a huge, significant part of our training. We've got training that has been observed by the Alzheimer's Association. It's been deemed a Leaders in Dementia Care training. And we may have caregivers that are like, I don't feel really comfortable working with somebody who has dementia, but I just feel like with training, with exposure, setting them up for success, so that way they don't shy away from that type of individual. I'm not quite sure if I answered your question. I'm sorry, but
you are definitely. It's a balancing act too. It's like, and that's why I've always been curious about it too. It's just like, for my grandfather, he was my grandpa, so like I didn't know like if he was never combative with me, to be honest with you. But like, there was times where he didn't want to do something, and he was a grumpy guy, and we had to do it. And so those are the scenarios that come up that, like, if I didn't know any better, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person's coming into my home, and they're gonna have to get my grandfather to shower for the evening. Like, what am I to expect? Am I going to have to like look over their shoulder and just be worried that my grandfather's going to do something? Or is this person prepared and trained, for an elderly person to be a little bit more combative, to get bathed or showered or wherever it might be? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to our in-person training. We do supplement their training with online training. Again, it is heavily focused on dementia care, as well as the activities of daily living, like bathing, toileting, dressing, standing, walking, just that overall safety aspect of care. Yeah.
Yeah, I get you totally. And one thing that I was thinking about as we've been talking a little bit is that it's 10 years, you said, right, in business? About
Almost 10
almost
years.
10
Yeah,
years?
9.5. We're
So one, there should be
approaching
probably a
10.
big celebration coming up here
Yeah.
soon for 10 years, because that's a big
Mm-hmm.
milestone in business to be 10 years in. And the second thing is it's husband and wife owned business, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Talk a little about the dynamic between the husband and wife owned business and how that works too.
Yeah, that's I think a question that we got asked by a lot of individuals. My husband is an engineer, worked for the Navy civil servant for about 15 years. I mentioned I was a dental hygienist. So when we moved out here and opened Synergy, we weren't quite sure how we were, how it was to be working together. We're waking up together. We're driving to work together now. We're literally sitting across the table from one another, answering phones, hearing our conversations, spending a lot of quality time together for sure. So, there's definitely been challenges of making sure that you turn work off once you get home and have that valuable time with your kids and your spouse and stuff like that. I don't know, for Ian and I, it hasn't been all that challenging and difficult. I would say probably the biggest thing is just turning off work, because it's easy to just go home and continue like working and talking about it, and just having that balance. Our goal, once we opened Synergy, at some point when we knew that we were successful, that it would allow us more time with our kids and time together that is not in the office.
Did that happen?
At work. It did happen.
Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
I'm very proud to say that probably like around year 4 or so, it started alleviating more time with the kids, being able to pick them up and drop them off whenever they needed to be for school and activities and so forth.
Yeah.
That was like one really cool accomplishment too, is just having your kids see you start a business from the ground up. They're 2.5 years old, hearing us answer the telephone at all hours of the day. And it just makes your heart melt when you're driving in the car and your 3-year-old out of nowhere is like, "Thanks for choosing Synergy Home Care. This is Ryder. How may I help you?" And he's like mocking mom and dad answering the phone. And you're like, whoa, I never I hadn't really thought this through, the impact on the kids and what they're seeing and how it can sort of sculpt their futures and their lives. They talk about it. They talk about wanting to work for Synergy Home Care when they're old enough. So we'll see if they'll follow in the footsteps of mom and dad. And nonetheless, it's exposing them again to a really unique generation. Them not being afraid to talk to seniors. It's cool seeing them open doors and hold doors for an older man and woman, and without me even asking them or telling them to do it. They just have sort of seen it and now are implementing it in their own lives. So that's really cool to see that happen with them.
Oh, gosh, that's so important, especially with your kids, to be exposed to something like that. One, like, don't they call that generation the greatest generation?
They do.
Boomers.
Correct. The boomers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for your kids to have like I said, the exposure to them. And not only that, I remember when I was working with special needs kids in high school, because I had some folks with special needs in my family. Like, when I became an adult, I realized other adults didn't know how to, they didn't know how to behave around folks like that.
Interact.
And Andrew probably has that experience too, because he's worked with folks with special needs before too. And it's just interesting to operate life. And some folks still don't know how to deal with all that or interact with folks from different walks of life. And so the fact that your kids are being exposed to that at such a young age is going to make them so much better and so much more worldly and understanding of so many things.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool. I was just going to ask you how your kids have fit into this whole, how old are your kids now?
So I have a 12-year-old son, Ryder, and a 13-and-a-half-year-old son, Bryce. And I pull them in. We were talking earlier before the show about different activities and things that I do in care communities, like the senior selfie event or the elder elves. And they don't have grandparents here. All of our family is back in Pennsylvania. So this is a way for them to have 100 grandparents and to interact and learn those life skills of communicating and not being afraid. And I think it's really cool. It's just second nature for them. They don't really it doesn't even seem like work for them. They don't complain about it, which is awesome. Because it's, for young kids, it may not always be the most exciting thing to go hang out with grandma and grandpa while they watch NBC News and snack on some candy or something like that, like my grandparents did anyway. So I appreciate them, being open-minded to our senior community and helping out as much as they can.
I remember that. I always say, like when my mom was an executive, she used to rent out little suite. She worked for the newspaper and they give her like a suite, like a nice freaking suite at any game or whatever. And she would invite these like huge executives, like say example, Jay Chimino from Phil Longford. Now she wasn't an executive when we were here in Colorado Springs, but we lived in New York and all over, but like high status auto dealers or executives in whatever city. And she would make me introduce myself to them. And I was like, I don't know, 5 or 6. And I'd be like, hey, my name is Marcus Alvarado. I'm Patty Alvarado's son. What's your name? And it'd be like, this millionaire that I'd be talking to. And so I never I never got intimidated, I guess, by that situation, just because I was kind of already conditioned to do that early on. And I always remember that. It's like one of my favorite memories of like being young and interacting with adults from a young age. And so like what you're talking about with your kids, they're going to carry that with them probably for the rest of their life, and it's going to serve them in some way. You know?
Absolutely. It's great that your mom encouraged you to kind of make that eye contact, have a firm handshake. That's actually something that I train our caregivers on. I'm like, people are so judgmental and first impressions are everything. And if you can, even though you're so nervous walking into the stranger's home and am I going to do good? And am I going to make them happy? Because our caregivers, all they want to do is they're self-serving. They want to please, they want to help people. But making that eye contact and putting your hand out there and feeling vulnerable and uncomfortable really just helps solidify that relationship like right off the bat. It is such a critical thing, I feel like, and something that unfortunately COVID sort of damaged was shaking of the hands. Now people are a little bit hesitant, like, do they want to? And so I stress upon our caregivers that sometimes you are the only warm body that this individual may see all week. So reach out and put your hand on their shoulder, offer them a hug, see if that's something that they're open to, and helping them out.
Oh, that's so true. I know whenever I go to any community with Danielle, like if they're in a wheelchair or sitting down, I try to get to their eye level right away. 'Cause there's something to be said with communication when you're at eye level with one another, as opposed to like just standing up and talking to them. You want to be eye level with them, and
So true.
there's something to be said with that kind of. I learned that in some kind of communication class, but like just little things like that go a long way, especially when you're talking to a senior who might not have the best hearing, eyesight, or whatever it might be, right? And they don't know you. Like these are like the disabling a lot of those big barriers that might come up from somebody who sees you in their home, And so that's awesome. I love that you say like shaking the hand, looking them in the eyes. I mean, that's that generation if you think about it, right? They're the ones who hammered that home for their kids and grandkids, right? So I'm sure they expect that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, one thing that I wanted to ask you was challenges as of, post-COVID.
Yeah.
In this specific industry. What do those look like? I'm sure workforce is probably one of those challenges, but talk to us about more of them and how you face adversity as a company.
Yeah, COVID created a lot of challenges. As I mentioned, we support people in assisted living and memory cares, and we found that we were being kicked out of those care communities and couldn't provide and offer that one-on-one care that the individual was used to having, and then relying on the care communities. And then all of a sudden, communities and homes are being sealed off. And there's just this lack of, touch with human life and isolation. And some cool things that we did. We did a honk for hope, and we got a whole bunch of senior care partners and other businesses, and got in our cars and decorated them and drove all through the city on different Saturdays around the care communities, honking our horns and just seeing all the seniors kind of up against the window, looking out, just reaching for you, wanting you. And so once there was a vaccination and the virus was not as scary as it once was, it definitely, there was just a rush, a flood of need that was unpredictable. So many calls saying, I've pulled my loved one out of assisted living and they're at home with me, and I'm burnt out. I'm so stressed out. I can't do this anymore. Or my mom is in independent living but doesn't want to move out of independent living. So can you offer some daily care to them so she doesn't have to move into assisted living, a higher level of care? So I think the biggest challenge was just that there was such a great need post-COVID and finding the talent to support that need. It's just this great balancing act that happens in our office every day. Gosh, what are some other challenges that COVID posed? I think for our care team, they were really concerned that they would get somebody sick. What if I'm a carrier and my kid comes home from school and I get sick and I don't even realize that I'm asymptomatic, and then the person that I'm caring for gets sick? There was a heavy weight, a heavy burden on caregivers. So there was this mass exodus of mature women and men leaving the field because of fear paralyzing them. And I saw this uprising of young millennials and young people saying, if they're not going to do it, I have to do it. Somebody has to do it. And so it was neat to see that shift in the workforce, seeing sort of these young natural leaders just jumping in and saying, there's a need and I know that I'm good at this and I'm going to do it.
Well, the senior community, just population was the most vulnerable at that time. So it's like, I can understand the pressure too at the same time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very worrisome for the team. So
yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend went through that to the nail, what you just said, as far as like a mass exodus, and then, a millennial like herself having to, take the reins and step up in those times, which are some crazy times, and I think it's been 4 years since COVID, but I mean, the rust of COVID still a little bit there just because it had such an impact on so many different things, right? And a lot of people's health and a lot of different things more than just getting COVID, isolation and all the different things that came with COVID, right? We can talk about that all day long, but like the workforce, we see it in everything. We see it in hospitality. We see it especially in healthcare of like people who are tired or new people who just treat a job as a bare minimum type of just show up and do it and leave, no real passion, to the people who are like maybe passionate, but they're very tired and worn out because maybe they're pulling more of their own weight. Like it's crazy to see. And like, I can tell you right now, your industry is going to grow a lot, in the next 10 to 20, 30 years. What can you do to combat that? Because it's just like you guys got dealt such a big blow that no one saw coming. Yet we know what's coming, which is the biggest, generation going to be going into more intensive care.
Yeah, I think, we rely on some technology, some modern day technology where somebody who may not remember to take their medicine can get a machine that is programmed to dispense medication with a chime and a verbal cue. There are you can phone in and step on a scale. And there's just, if you're concerned about cardiovascular disease and having a couple of pounds of weight gain and water weight can be very difficult for somebody who is living with cardiovascular disease.
Right.
So there are ways that technology can monitor our seniors in the beginning of them needing care short of a caregiver. So we're seeing more and more individuals relying on that technology before they're faced with having to hire a home care company like Synergy Home Care. And being on the front line of that, knowing that, understanding that, recommending that to families, providing it. Yeah. Shoe inserts for somebody who gets lost but has GPS in them, who likes to go for a walk and can't find their way home. Well, where is mom? Oh, she's just around the corner. Let me go get her and stuff. So I feel like because there is this silver tsunami that's happening, and are we going to have enough providers to care for these individuals? You're going to have to get creative. The girls and I, my care managers and I always joke about the is it the Golden Girls?
Yeah.
The Golden Girls. Yeah.
The show.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's, we meet these individuals and we're caring for them individually. And we were like, oh, if Betty and Margaret became friends and roommates, like they could rely on one another.
Yeah.
Like maybe cognitively Betty's declining, but physically, the other individuals declining, and could they rely on each other for a little while to stay independent in their own homes and stuff. So I think we may even start to see something like that, like seniorsroommate.com or something like that.
That'd be great.
Maybe you started.
Who knows? Maybe, maybe it's
You're not busy enough.
I'm not even realizing.
Maybe that's where your industry goes, and that's where you have to pivot, though. Like that could be one way to do it. One way to pivot.
It is one way too. Yeah. I love it. Yeah, thanks for the idea.
It's your idea.
We just pulled it out of you somehow, some way, I guess. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think technology will, I mean, we know, Andrew and I, we nerd out. I mean, he really nerds out, especially with AI and robotics.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say, the short answer to what you were saying is robots.
Robots. I think that could happen. I mean, that's been a conversation for a long time in our industry that, could robots take over caregiving? I think it would be difficult for the senior. The seniors have a hard time using a cell phone, a smartphone, a tablet, a computer. Allowing AI to come into their home and care for them. I don't know if we're quite there yet. Our generation, I think, would be open to that.
Definitely,
AI.
There's a Black Mirror episode about that, actually. Do you know the show Black Mirror? Oh, it's crazy.
I'll have to,
there's an old people episode, old people home episode, where in the future they actually upload their consciousness into like a place. It's a weird episode. I won't even get into it. I think it's called Juniper or something like that. But yeah. Yeah, you were saying, what were you saying though about like the robotics being into the technology?
I think you just took it where it needed to go. I think that there's an age of robotics that's very real that a lot of people might think of as sci-fi, but it's not. It's literally coming in the next 10 to 20 years. And I think it will help with that silver tsunami that you're talking about.
Yeah.
In what way, I'm kind of unsure, but it's probably going to be a very big hybrid of what we all might think. I think that at that point, even the seniors at that point might be a lot more familiar and well acquainted with whatever that might be, whether it's a robot that actually looks more humanoid looking or not. I just think that,
or just gets the job done.
Yeah, it's inevitable. And it could be just minor jobs. So who knows? But the funny thing is we're talking about robotics in the future, and it actually will be a thing during that silver tsunami. It's absolutely inevitable.
I mean, I was just gonna say, we talk about it happening in schools. I mean, it's going to penetrate every aspect of our life at some point. So, unfortunately, the greatest generation that we're caring for now is not going to be open to that. But I think I would be open to it.
It's so true.
Yeah, I understand that completely. And to play a little bit of devil's advocate on the workforce thing, I saw this one like statistic, and it was like, basically it was a bunch of printout ads all the way back to the 1920s. Everyone complaining about how the workforce is lazy these days. And it was just kind of funny. We've always had that thought for like 100 years that like the workforce is this younger generation, but it's like, I think, there's a little bit of hype to that, but there's also some realness to that. Like during COVID, that was a real thing. But like, have you noticed that coming coming back the workforce, and then you also have the tsunami of the seniors of like you were saying, like there's a big turnover that's going to be happening soon or in the middle of happening. But yeah,
I mean, I would think so. Yeah, for sure.
it's like recouped a little bit since then.
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. This is just a service industry, and so right off the bat, it's when we're recruiting our talent, it is really sort of laying that foundation and understanding of like what the goals, what the expectations are. There's times and places to watch a little bit of TV with the person that you're caring for, but a lot of what we do is it's very task oriented.
Mm-hmm.
We're there for a 4-hour block of time or an 8-hour block of time, and surprisingly, so much stuff has to happen in that short amount of time.
And you have to document it too, I'm sure.
And if it's not written, it's not real.
Exactly.
So, a very high level of documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Every hour or anytime any task or duty is performed, the expectation that it is documented as well. So I think I hear our clients that we help talk about the younger generations being lazy and not working as hard as them. But then they invite this person into their home, and I think they really see the value and appreciate like all the things that they are doing. And so maybe their minds are being, persuaded differently, and they're actually seeing, this younger generation. That is actually a big thing when I meet with somebody like, who are you going to send? Is this person going to be closer to my age or is it going to be some 18-year-old, and obviously we hire people of all ages and races and backgrounds and stuff like that. So there are some challenges with that. Setting that expectation. It's just like, let's just get them in here, meet them. More than likely you're really gonna enjoy them. Synergy has really great technology that we use to help generate a synergistic match. The name Synergy Home Care is its name for a reason.
Okay.
So we enter a lot of different client attributes and caregiver attributes, and with a push
That's
of
cool.
a button,
I love it.
the brain I don't have to rely on my brain and stress my brain to remember that, Mary's allergic to cats, but the client has a cat. So, the things that the caregiver's comfortable offering and providing service wise, the needs of that individual. It also looks at distance and how far the caregiver is from the client, because we don't want somebody living in Fountain driving all the way up to Palmer Park, because that reliability could be strained during, bad weather or
I do that pretty much every day just because I like going to Palmer Park and I live close to
Wow.
Fountain.
I was like, that's Andrew actually for you.
You're the perfect example. My perfect example.
We'll drive your CNA to.
I was thinking it's funny. You've already built the infrastructure for the senior matching. Like you already have the technology.
It's already there, right? And so those are things that like we think about in the office. So that's, I'm concerned. I don't want you driving 30, 40 minutes to work. I would rather match you up with somebody who's, 10 or 15 minutes from your house. And Colorado Springs is so big. So if we can reduce the amount of time that the caregivers are spending in their car, it helps to retain them, and they enjoy then working for Synergy because they know that we're concerned about just even something so simple like that for the care team.
I would say when we were hiring any caregiver to come into our house, the biggest thing for us obviously was training. And I mean, I've walked into other senior communities and memory care units where I've seen training, and sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's like, you should know, the difference between like a resident wanting to get up and it's time for lunch and them trying to force them up within the minute of them versus knowing that whatever it might be, they're going through dementia, and it takes time for them to actually register the, hey, we need to get up and go eat. Like that actually takes time for them to process in their brain, whether it be 30 seconds or 15 minutes for the person, whoever's moving them should know that stuff. Like little things like that go so far when you're handling seniors. So like with your team, how does that work?
Yeah, we really rely on a resource. this woman, she's a world-renowned dementia care trainer. Her name is Teepa Snow, and she has unlimited resources on YouTube, just short videos where she actually is role-playing that she is somebody living with an advanced or moderate dementia, and kind of bounces back and forth between I'm the caregiver and what to say, what not to say, and plays out these scenarios. And so I find that our care team really like just is drawn to that sort of real life in action. And over the years, I've watched hundreds of videos of Teepa Snow. So in my training, I do role playing and how would you handle the situation and get them to have some of the critical thinking and get them developing that skill. And maybe they don't have it and it needs to be refined with further education and training and videos and stuff like that. But yeah, Teepa Snow hands down.
How do you spell it?
Teepa is Teepa Snow.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, you'll have to check her out. She talks about how to toothbrush, how to bathe, how to get somebody in and out of a car, and somebody who is already anxious and maybe potentially combative, how to get that individual to be redirected, calm down, and so forth. So I lean into Teepa Snow. The UCCS Aging Center is another really great resource. It's been a great resource for me. It's been a great resource for our clients. They can go there and get cognitive assessments done. There are support groups. There are a lot of neuropsychiatrists there just saying, this is what to expect over the next 10 years of your loved one's life expectancy. And again, just creating that conversation and stuff. So they've been a really great resource. The Area Agency on Aging has been another wonderful resource to the community, to senior care businesses as well. Mm-hmm. They're always trying to understand who you are, what you offer. So when they meet with somebody in the community, they can direct them to, here's where you get your Medicaid or care or your dental and in-home care. And, here's a geriatric eye doctor. And so really, really valuable resources that I use on a weekly basis and communicate with individuals that work in those places. So
that's awesome. Well, almost 10 years of owning this business.
Yeah.
What would Brooke now tell Brooke of day one opening this business? Tell her.
I would say that I like being right, and I have a disease called perfectionism. I would probably tell myself that not everything is going to be perfect and it's going to work out. It's going to be okay. My idea of perfect, I've had to realize, is not the same idea of perfect to our care team and to the individuals that we serve on a daily basis. So really, I think learning to let go and relax a little bit and just the power of knowing that things are going to work out the way that they are supposed to work out, and not to stress about it and try to control that aspect. So I think starting the business, I wanted to control every aspect, and then you have to build a team to support you, and learning to let go of some of my responsibilities and giving that to some of our care managers. That was a challenge, definitely, for me. I thought I could do everything and wear all the hats. And I think probably many business owners probably feel that way in the beginning. But I'm definitely to the point where it's like, I want to empower my care managers, Jaslyn, Angelina, Riley, to do that hard thing, have that hard conversation with somebody. And it's really neat watching them grow and realizing I was just like them at one point. So it's been a really cool aspect.
You gotta, if you have do you know who Dan Martell is? He has a book.
I do not know Dan Martell.
He's an author, but speaker, coach. He's actually a coach for someone who Andrew works with, Christopher Nicolason. He's awesome. But he has a book called Buy Back Your Time. And he talks about like delegating out when you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of high standards. That's why I call it perfectionist, is like someone just really high standards of how things should get done. It's really hard for them to lower their standards, even if it's somebody, you know, who's really good at the job, but you know, it's just really hard to give away your baby to other people. And he says, what does he say? He's like, 80% done for you is 100% awesome. So, and all he means by that is like, it could be done 80% done as well as you would do it, but like it's 100% awesome that you get to pick up your child from school or go to a play or whatever it might be, and you're capturing those moments and getting your life back. And so for like any entrepreneur out there who's thinking about like, oh my gosh, I don't want to give away that, give away this, just because they don't want the standards to be lowered. I mean, for one, that's called growing pains. We all have to understand that that's part of it. When you bring on other people, you got to give them their time to fly. And it's never going to be 100% how you do it. It's going to be their way of doing it. And sometimes it works better if you give it time and if you water that person to grow and do their own thing and make that job or duty their baby. And so it's a beautiful thing too. But like, I just think, you know, you're at that point now in your business where you're able to do that and you see the folks in your team really flourish. And it's just so cool to see.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, from the beginning, people always said you have to work on the business, not in the business. And at the beginning, I was like, well, I want to take care of these individuals. I want to be their caregiver, but I can't be in 100 places at the same time. And really, I mean, I'm leveraging the work. So trusting in these individuals. So again, coming back to my care team, it's making sure we're hiring the right people from the very beginning, and they're carrying my reputation out into the community. And so making sure that they are set up for success and feel confident is really cool. And helping these caregivers to grow. And they're in difficult situations every day. And I just love connecting with them, hearing about it and supporting them with it. So
it's good.
Yeah.
That's what a leader's supposed to do. Well, this is your camera right here.
I have one more question.
Oh, one more question.
So working with a lot of older people, they've got a lot of wisdom, I believe, and there's a lot we can learn from them. Is there one thing you've noticed that you've just heard some of your clients talk about that, like, what their number one regret would be?
Ooh,
that's a really good question.
that is a really, really good question. I honestly think is time, spending more time with their loved ones and not being so focused on work and letting work sort of drive and control their life. So yeah, just wishing that they had more time, because as you can imagine, as you're 99 years old and on hospice, and your time is exceptionally limited. And so they really start dwelling on, I wish I would have gone to that birthday party. I wish I would have gone to that wedding or something like that. So I think that's probably the number one answer to that question.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's your camera over there.
Yeah. It's your camera. Give them your details.
All right. Yep. I'm Brooke McClintock, owner of Synergy Home Care. If you have any home care needs, no matter where home is, we do provide care to everyone of all ages. Feel free to reach out to us. Give us a call, 719-203-5848. You can find a wealth of information at synergyhomecare.com. Thank you.
All right. This has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yay.
That was good. You did really good.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
So good. Oh my God.